Thank you so much for joining our Spilling the Teeth Quick Sips episode, the first one of the series. That's so exciting. Great to have you on. Um, if you could you give us a little bit of an overview about who you are, who you work for, and what you do?
Yeah, of course, Alan. Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me. My name is Phil Molden, and I am a director and co-founder of Working Feedback, the leading review system within the UK for dental practices. We established in 2006, so we've been going for some time now. 20 years next year is our anniversary. So yes, we collect, manage, and moderate reviews on behalf of dental practices, making sure that not only do we collect the feedback for them, but as well as that, it makes them stand out online and they're able to actually do something with the feedback.
Amazing, amazing. And as this is a quick sips episode, I really want to dive into how working feedback can help people and the expertise that you guys can bring to the table super fast. So we're going to kick off with probably one of the big questions that you always get asked, and I've seen it being asked at events as well. Why do online reviews play such a critical role in dental practice growth and reputation?
Yeah, I think the thing is, to be honest, you could ask this of any industry, but I mean, for example, Alan, do you book a hotel without looking at reviews first?
No, exactly. I
I
don't.
mean, it's standard now. What used to be we say, what used to be a luxury in terms of reviews is now a necessity. It's all about affirmation. It's the digital online way of word of mouth. People for any service, and particularly for something as specialised in healthcare as dentistry, it's so important to be able to do it. Um, and from the perspective of patients, let's say, for example, there's a nervous patient. If you know nothing about the practice you're looking for, and then you start to see reviews, particularly about those who've had anxiety or some type of nervousness, it reassures patients in that way. So it's just so important in terms of online presence, and that's what people do now.
Yeah, definitely. And, we see that more and more, not just things like social media where people are looking up their surgeons on LinkedIn, but we are seeing that in the Google space, people calling surgeons out by name, even hygienists out by name. So, yes, it's really, really important more than ever. And, when we're talking about strategies and getting those reviews, if we're seeing them as so important, what are some simple review strategies and practices that practices themselves could start pulling together and using immediately to increase those positive patient feedbacks?
Yeah. Well, one thing I would say, it's not. I mean, we automatically think about positivity in terms of feedback, but one of the things, and we've learned from my experience, is that sometimes the gold dust comes actually from the constructive feedback. You know, again, years ago, using the example where principals in particular just wanted 5-star reviews, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but the world has changed, and people expect a level of impartiality. Not everybody is perfect in terms of what they do. So, what is important now about asking for reviews and a strategy is making sure that you ask consistently. Everybody understands exactly what the purpose of getting feedback is for. So, it's got to be part of the process. Make it easy. For example, when it's automated through practice software, management software such as Dentally or Exact, it happens automatically and it's part of the process. But even using with the way that it's developed, and certainly with working feedback, is that you have QR codes, you have tap plates. It's making it consistent and communicating with your patients as to why you're asking for feedback as well. It's not just to get star ratings, it's how could we improve our service to you? So that's a really important part in a strategy for making sure that you get positive and, in fact, feedback of all sorts.
Yeah, for sure. And we know that as individuals, right? So when we're looking for feedback, we're not just looking for, high praise. We're looking for how we can grow, how we can change. And that constructive feedback is always what we're looking for. We're never looking for just a slap on the back. I agree.
Yeah, I think the other thing about that as well is it's not just about that positive feedback that you're getting initially. A big element that we promote also is the replying to feedback, because one of the ultimately practices tend to think, well, I must only respond to negative feedback. And that's not the case anymore, because don't forget, when it's online, it's displayed online, it's important that you reply to the positive reviews as well, because then potential patients actually get to see a personality of your practice, and they get that level of confidence, and it shows that you care. You're interacting with the feedback that you receive from your patients.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree. And we talk about putting this as part of your workflow, as part of your patient journey. But is there a specific moment during the patient journey that's ideal for asking for the reviews?
Yeah, it's we found from experience is that it's relatively soon after the appointment. So, for example, we have it set up within the practice management software that it's approximately 45 minutes after they've left the practice. That's a relatively, because it's fresh in their mind. It's an experience they've just had. But what is important is that it's not always that there could be a series of treatments, for example. So bear in mind that it's not just each time they come in for an appointment. It can be at certain stages within that. And what I mean is, for example, if it's an orthodontic treatment that is carrying on for a while, don't just think it has to be at the end. Think about throughout the process, because you can learn from a feedback element from that as well. Is that, well, perhaps this stage didn't run as well as it should have done, if you get that feedback, or this was a fantastic time to ask them particular feedback. So it's it's making sure that you sequence it and you make sure that your patients aren't being bothered in asking for feedback, because there's nothing being worse than being asked for feedback on a really regular basis. We set our timing so that it can't be asked within 28-day period, being asked for feedback at the same time. It's making sure that it's done relatively soon after, but also think about those stages of the treatments.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we're thinking about like not just when we're asking for reviews, but like at the moment of asking for a review, what platforms should we focus on? Now, there's so many platforms out there. There's Google, there's Trustpilot, there's other ones out there as well, even down to things like Yale.com. What should we be focusing on?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, working feedback is the first one, but no,
Yeah.
seriously, it's. I think the most important thing is probably on everybody's lips is Google. Because that's the most visible. It's the search engine used by pretty much everybody, and certainly for the time being, there doesn't appear to be anything going to be happening big in changing that. So Google is important as far as visibility is concerned. So it's important that within the system, when you're asking for feedback, that it's able to integrate with Google or whatever you have set up. But the important thing about the platforms as well is that whilst Google is seen as really important, they only have two questions. One is a star rating, and the other is a comment. So it's
Mm,
quite limiting in terms of that, and different if you're delivering a parcel, because obviously, or something like that, which is fairly basic. But this is healthcare. This is very specialised. It's about emotions. It's about people, how people feel. It's about dealing with people's traumas and various other things. So within that, the platforms, I mean, some of the others you mentioned, Trustpilot, etc., they're all very good platforms. However, they're not focusing on healthcare. It's they tend to be very generalized in terms of that. So look for something that has a specialism in healthcare, and certainly within dentistry, because the other element to that is when you're focusing on these platforms, you have that ability to bespoke your questions, because
mm.
it's relevant to how you communicate with your patients. It's not just about having a general standard question set. What do you want to know? What would your patients like to know when they're looking at reviews and the feedback that's been left? So that's really important. Facebook and Instagram uh, tend to be the main other kind of testimonial platforms at the moment. It's utilized for that. However, that's a bit more challenging because Facebook and Insta particularly is kind of video based. So it's a bit more challenging to get that. The other part as well, which we're seeing, is obviously AI is becoming more and more important because it's blending in with our everyday activities for anything we do digitally. So it's at some stage it'll be looking for things, and we're starting to develop things that will help with AI searches and other things that are going to benefit that. So yeah, it's just those modern platforms. Think about where people are going to see it.
Yeah, yeah, and see how it works for you, and is it achieving what you want to achieve, and find something that's configurable to your needs. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want
absolutely.
to Yeah, so I want to go back to something you mentioned about, not just responding to negative comments, but also positive. And I want to sort of split that into two. So I want to talk a little bit about the negative ones first, and then we'll move on to the positive. So what's your recommendation for responding to those negative reviews, and maybe even use them to improve a practice's reputation, first off?
Yeah, I think again this is a very popular issue at the moment in terms of a lot of dental practices are looking at this. One of the most important things, certainly with negative reviews, is don't hide, don't shy away from them. it's important that I think historically and from our experience, we've found that a lot of people think, well, it's a negative review. If I push that to the side, perhaps it will go away, perhaps it won't be as serious. But often that's the opposite, because it's either the patient that's left it becomes even either more irate, in fact, because they haven't had anything done with that particular comment about it. But the important thing is, yeah, don't hide from it, respond to it. A lot of cases whereby it may be false, it may be feedback that isn't necessarily particularly relevant to that particular visit. So be honest with it in terms of addressing it and making sure that, for example, if it's feedback that you don't quite it doesn't resonate with you, and you think, well, actually I'm not quite sure when that happened, address that in the sense that we're happy to talk to you. Please give the practice a call. Often these type of feedbacks are left anonymously as well, so it's even more challenging to be able to do this. Address it, and sometimes look to get that conversation offline, because there is no point in obviously trying to address something that you don't have a full understanding of. And as we know, face to face is often the best way to deal with these things as much as possible. So that's an important part to it. But I can't stress enough. Don't ignore it. It's important that you address it and be honest about it, because the way that feedback works is typically 99% of your reviews and the feedback that you have is positive.
Mm.
So there'll be an occasional one, and the fact that you're interacting, you're being reactive to that as opposed to, being proactive instead of actually leaving it. It shows it very much in a positive light.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then we start to talk about those positive reviews, right? And that the majority of what you'll be getting if you start doing a proper piece of work around reviews. What's a real practical way that a practice can leverage those positive reviews to build trust and attract new patients?
Yeah, I mean, one of them, it's all about showcasing them on your website. I think is one of the main key things, because we tend to know the journey. If a potential patient is looking for a dental practice for a service of some sort, what they'll do is they'll go online, and ultimately they'll then the purpose of reviews particularly is to then just walk them through that, because ultimately you want that particular patient to be contacting you. That's normally the next step of the website. So it's that credibility in terms of going from there. So the website is important because reviews, particularly certainly from a working feedback perspective, are dynamic. So as soon as they're moderated, they go live on your site. You don't have this scenario where reviews are a few years old and were put on by the website developer. They happen pretty much every day. Reviews are being posted onto the website, so it's adding to the content in terms of that. Because the other benefits of having reviews on the website is that the way that they're written, certainly within some of our code, is that Google is able to read them. So they're optimizing and adding to your search engine optimization as well. So it's a benefit to have it on there. The other part with using them on your website is that put some context to it. It's this whole thing of impartiality. Don't just take our word for it. This is what our patients have said independently in relation to the service that we provide. So put some context to the reviews themselves when they're on their websites. And also from a benefit perspective is that content can be used in so many different ways. What's really important is that all of a sudden it's a review, and potentially we were talking earlier about nervous patients, is that if you have reviews particularly about treatments that have been given to nervous patients, utilize that for a case study or a bit more detailed in terms of that, so you can have an example which is going to really, really be encouraging to potential patients looking at your site if there's something relevant to them. So that piece of content goes a significantly long way in terms of being able to make sure and make your practice stand out.
Yeah, totally, totally. But there's some amazing tips in there, and this whole quick episode has been super full of tips. But the one thing that people are going to be asking is, okay, now I'm the expert. I've watched the quick tips video, and I know how to do this. But how can I train my teams? So how can practices train their teams to make requesting reviews smooth, consistent, and generally just part of the journey for the patient?
Of course, I think as always, it's about communication. Internally, understand what the process of this is. I've not discussed before, I've not mentioned in this yet about review gating. And if I can just address that very quickly, it's become, from our experience, some practices think, look, I only want to ask for a review when it's completely positive. If they've had any element of a negative experience or even late for the appointment, I don't want anything asked about it. I just want simply a positive review. And again, that's lovely in principle, but it doesn't really benefit the practice at all. So you have to understand, if I'm going to ask for reviews, it has to be impartial. It has to be willing to understand and accept what patients want to say, because the only way initially you're going to learn and grow is from honest feedback. There's no good pushing something aside if there's a problem with the reception or if there's a problem with some other element of it. You want to know about it. So communicate that with the team, and particularly with the patient. So when the patient is, for example, leaving, they've just had a particular treatment or a series of treatments, is thank you so much for coming today. I hope you've enjoyed hope you've benefited and enjoyed the treatment. What we'd like to do within the next hour or so, we'll be sending you a feedback request. Hopefully that's okay. Would love to get your feedback because it helps us grow so much and it's really important to us. So that communication then prompts your patient to understand, well, actually, yeah, do you know what? Yeah, I think I'd be willing. I'll look out for that. And whether it's by SMS or whether it's by an email, or even if the dental practice has their tap plate there or the QR code, it can be done there and then. But they understand exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. So it's about communicating with the team and making sure that you know why you're getting feedback.
Yeah, for sure. And yes, I think stopping that review gating and using it for the real purpose that it was built for, I think is so key. So thank you for bringing that up again. I think that was really useful. So, I've asked you a hell of a lot of questions here, and there's been some fantastic takeaways from this. But as we're coming to the end of this quick episode, I'd just like to ask you: is there anything else you'd really want everyone to know about reviews? If they're only going to take one thing away, what would be the thing that they need to know and they need to take away and implement?
I think is to ask for feedback. As we said at the start of this conversation, you don't do anything without looking at reviews nowadays. So one of the problems is start it, but ensure you know why you're asking for feedback, because the whole idea to this is consistency. So make sure when you're asking for reviews, you do it on a regular basis. Otherwise, it's a snapshot in time. It's meaningless. It may look good at the time. It may look good on Google, but consistency is key for asking for reviews. We recently published a white paper, and we have put together a summary of 851,000 patient reviews collected over the past 5 years. It's available to download via the Working Feedback website, but for YouTube, it looks at hard copy is like this, but it's got some fantastic guidance and advice, and in terms of what happens and what's happened and what's changed within the dental industry with feedback. So I'd recommend anybody, if they're interested, to have a look at that white paper.
Absolutely great call out. And yeah, if you want that white paper, please do go on the Working Feedback website. If you want to ask questions, you can ask through the Working Feedback website or via the Dentally website as well. We'd be more than happy to put you in touch with Phil or the team. You can go to our email. You can reply in the comments below. Everything gets shown to the Working Feedback team. We work very strongly together. So if you've got any questions, please do reach out. So Phil, thank you. Absolute joy to have you on the show. I will finish with a question to the audience. Write in the comments below, it's not a question actually, write in the comments below about a time where you turned around a piece of, we'll say, constructive feedback and turn it into a positive outcome. Give us your stories below. Thank you so much, Phil. We'll see you on the next episode of Spilling the Teeth or the next episode of Spilling the Teeth Quick Sips.